Well, good evening, good afternoon or good morning to whatever time you're tuning in, and welcome to Pen Friends with me, Andrew. So today I thought we would check out this pen, the Pelikan m200. Okay, so before we start the review on this fine writing instrument by Pelikan, I thought I would give a little overview. But a disclaimer before I do start: I am not a historian, and the facts which I am going to give you can be quite easily researched on Pelikan's website. Okay, so the year was 1831, and although Pelikan wasn't actually trading under that name at that stage, the company which was to be bought out by Gunther Wagner in 1871 was producing inks, watercolours and oil paints to schools, and producing them for schools and for local businesses as well. The company, as I say, was purchased by Gunther Wagner in 1871, and that from that point onwards started producing fountain pens. But it wasn't until 1927 where the patent for the piston was formed by a young engineer by the name of Theodore Kovacs. Apologies if I've mispronounced his name, but being a native English speaker, sometimes foreign words do elude me. But anyway, really from that point onwards, this is really what Pelikan was famous for: piston fillers, right up to today. Okay, so let's move on and have a look about this beautiful M200. Okay, so before we start with the Pelikan M200, I thought it might be worth mentioning Pelikan, when you get into the M range, has got two variances. They've got the range which ends in 5 and the range which ends in 0, which is what we have here. The range which ends in 0 is afforded a gold trim, and the range which ends in 5 is denoted with a silver trim. Of those ranges, you start at the 200, then the 300, 400, 600, 800, and then to the flagship, which is 1000. And that also works for the 205, I believe it's the 405, I don't know if they've got a 305, do correct me or tell me if that is correct or incorrect in the comments below. And then they've got the 405, the 605, the 805 and 1005. Okay, so we have the M200 here with the gold swirls, which is 2019's special edition. So let's start at the bottom and then work our way to the top. We've got the piston filling knob with a gold band or ring, depending on which country you're in and you want to pronounce it that one way or the other. The gold ribboning effect on the main pen barrel, semi-translucent as we turn it around. Still, it's a very fetching colour. Then we have got the gold band or ring stating Pelikan Germany, the cap, which has got Pelikan's famous bill, and then on the finial we have got Pelikan's logo, just nicely appointed. Underneath the pen we have got a gold plated, well, it's not actually gold plated, but a gold looking plated stainless steel nib, a plastic feed which is very easily removed. The nib we have on this pen is a medium, and I'll talk to you a bit more later in my overview about that nib. Nibs are easily replaced with extra fine, fine, medium or bold nibs. Of course you can get a nibsmith to grind it to whatever you prefer, but that's down to your own preference. We've also got an ink window here, which you can quite visibly see the ink in certain lights. It does slosh around quite beautifully in the actual ink window as you move it around. And the colour of the ink window is like a brownish material. Pelikan do offer a number of different colours within their range, and those are available to check out on various websites. Commonly green and brown are usually found on at most M200 pens and can be had for a relatively cheap price. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the pros and cons of this pen, and then we'll move on to doing a drawing sample later on of a lovely Pelikan, as I thought that might be quite fitting. This pen is very small, very light, which for some people may be a pro or it may be a con. For myself, weight and size doesn't really faze me too much. I've got relatively big hands, but when I post the pen, I've got a very comfortable writing experience. The nib range is decent. As I said, you can go to extra fine up to bold. I would argue maybe the medium being a medium. I'd say it's more like a fatter fine on this pen, but that's just from my own personal experience. The M200, in comparison to the rest of Pelikan's range, obviously doesn't have the afforded sort of appointments across the pen. If you look at the M400, you do have like a nice little gold band just around there. Also you get a nice 14 carat nib on the M400 as well, which I've been led to believe is a beautiful writing experience. Other than that, there isn't really a huge amount more to talk about. Actually, I suppose, yes, whilst I'm at it, I'll talk about this white section. It gets stained, let's face it. If you have a dark ink in there, it's going to get stained. Is it hard to clean? No, not at all. Simply flush the pen, get a little scrubbing brush, and then just give it a clean once in a while. I've only had this pen for a few months, so obviously this isn't a long-term review, and over time it may get worse, but about 3-4 months in, it's still absolutely fine. Being such a light pen, this will, as a writer or an artist, give you that ability to draw or write for a longer period of time in comparison to a heavy pen. This pen can also be had for a very cheap price point as well, if you're prepared to shop around. Now the nice thing about this pen, if I was to sell it, it'd actually probably retain its value as well. So, you know, I might even gain a little bit of money. Pelikan pens are very, very collectible and have a superb writing experience. Pelikan's nibs, bar the 1000, have a pretty good reputation for being a nice sort of wet writer, and I think that's really more or less it. I suppose some people might find this design a little bit conservative, but other than that, there's not really too much to complain about, especially at £90. Okay, so why don't you join me now into the writing and, well, actually not writing, the drawing sample. What am I talking about? Come on over. So, as we start this drawing sample, you're going to see me doing a number of different techniques, using the reverse of the pen and also the standard way of holding a pen. I thought this might be quite beneficial for those who are new to fountain pens and would like to see how versatile these pens actually are. So, without further ado, let's kick back, listen to some music, and hopefully try and enjoy this drawing. Okay, well, thank you for joining me in that drawing sample. I hope you liked what I produced. So, my last thoughts on this M200, it really is a beautiful pen, and if you have got a spare £70–80 or £130 if you're willing to buy from a recommended retailer, then go ahead and buy it. It really is a superb pen. So I'm going to sign off for now, and thank you again for listening and watching, and I shall see you in the next video. Thank you and goodbye.